Welcome to another episode of Curator's Corner. I'm Amy Christensen, curator of the Independence Heritage Museum. Today I'm going to be speaking with Anita Cantu, who has a long family history of hop picking. In the late 19th to the mid-20th centuries, every year in late August, hop pickers arrived in Independence in a mass exodus. They loaded their families, pets, and belongings and made their way for an annual profitable family work vacation. Growers advertised their need for pickers and provided cabins or tents, water, and other necessities. Social and cultural events were also provided, including an annual hop festival to celebrate the picking season. While many pickers migrated here seasonally, some planted their roots here in the community. Anita, thank you for joining us here in the museum today. I know that you have a long history in Independence, and it's connected to the hop industry. So I was wondering if you could share with us a little bit about your family's history of how you came to the area.
Okay. Hi, my name is Anita Cantu-Carrillo, and my uncles came from the state of Texas in 1951, and it was during the period where they had a big freeze in Texas and there was no work. So they found a contractor that was looking for men that were willing to come to the state of Oregon to work in the hop fields. And as far as my uncles said, they didn't know where Oregon was, they didn't know what hops was, but they ventured over here. They came to the first camp, and it was just my uncle Frankie Carrillo, Cipriano Carrillo, and my dad Pablo Carrillo. And they came to the Iola Ranch, which is going towards Salem. And it's a small camp. And they came in the early April, May, when it was still cold. And they said when they first got here to work, they didn't have the proper clothing because they weren't sure about the climate here. Since they came from Texas, it was always warm. So they really had a hard time that first year they came. But they managed to find work, getting the fields ready. In those days, they had to cultivate the fields of the hops. That was the first year they came. They went back to Texas, and that's when they brought the family back. And that's when my mother and my grandmother, my grandfather came. And as we were growing older, I must have started working maybe when I was 12, and my brother was 13. Those were the younger ones. And we started working in the hops. And by that time, my dad and my uncles all knew everything about the hops. They started with cultivating in between the rows and getting the fields ready for us. The hops, it's a vine that starts from the ground. At those years, we had to have a knife and we had to clean around all the vines, but just leave 3 vines to go up one string and 2 to go to the other string. We started working when we had to clean the bottom of the vines, okay? The ropes are already up, and our job was to clean the bottom, 3 vines up, 2 vines going the other string. As time passed, then we had to strip the vines from the bottom, all the leaves at the bottom, we had to strip them, and then we had to tie the 2 hop lines together. Okay. And that was tie back. And then we were, as far as we knew, we were done with that season. Okay. Then come along about this time, the last part of August, September, and that's when the cutting of the hops was done.
So your family's experience with the hops was before the modern mechanized harvesting. Like, you were a part of that historic part of hop harvest.
Yes, at the very beginning. I've got some pictures where how they used to cut the vines from the top, and there's just a little crow nest. They called it a crow nest. It's so little. They used to, when they would cut the vines, there were three ladies, or two ladies, and they would get the vines and they would weave the vines onto those bars that I was telling you that they had those sticks. They would actually weave the hops. So that has changed from now. Mm-hmm. And you know, everything now is done by machine. You know, they cut everything. This is the house I was telling you about that we first moved into at the McCarthy Ranch. Oh. And it down at the bottom is where the water would, when it would flood, so it's we use the upstairs. See this tool right here? That's where my brother is taking the two vines and they're sticking them in between the plant. There's the belt where we had to clean the hops. Make sure that there was no big sticks or things that were going through the belt. That's what we call the rastra. And there's dad is in the front and he's pulling it, and there we are at the top, and we have to, you know, tie the strings. And this is what the strings look like, more like that, thin. Right. Yeah, more like that. They were thin. And remember I told you at the very beginning when that's what they're doing right here. They're cleaning the bottom part, and then they're just letting the 3 and 2 vines go up. And
that's where you had your knives. The
knives, and we had to clean everything at the bottom so that only 2 and 3 of the vines had the opportunity to grow up. And these are just camps that we used to live in, you know. California, that was Arizona. And these were in, these were in California, mm-hmm. Arizona. So these were just Texas.
So I'm sure migrating around the country with your family like this created a really strong bond.
Oh yes, because we grew up with, always with my grandfather, my grandmother, my uncles, my mom, my dad, the kids, my cousins. We all lived in one house. Mm. And we all traveled together, back and forth.
Well, Anita, thank you so much for coming in and telling us your story about hop harvest and what it was like growing up in that setting. Really yes. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. It's lots of good memories. And I loved working in the outdoors.
If you have memories of your family's involvement with hop picking of years past, please consider coming to the Heritage Museum. We'd love to hear your story.